Good evening, everybody. Welcome to FMA Discussion. This is episode 293, and tonight we have Guro Greg Mason on, and we're going to be talking about his FMA training and definitely his time spent with Dr. Tim. Also, he is getting involved, or is involved with the Dog Brothers, I should say, and we're going to be covering all that good stuff. And I think he also has done some training with Philip Gelinas and all that. So we're going to bring him up. And also, if you haven't already, please hit like, subscribe to FMA Discussion, where all our money received goes to charity. And if you're watching, smash the like button and tell us where you're watching from. And without further ado, here we go. Hey there, how are you?
Good. How are you, Dean?
Good. We're just starting to get pouring rain here, but hopefully that will have any bearing on us. Usually it doesn't, but I shouldn't even be saying anything. I'm jinxing myself.
Yeah, weather's been great up north here, so we've been lucky.
Yeah. It's actually for May. It's unusually. It's been kind of hot. Like we don't usually get like high 70s, 80s in May, and so I don't know. It's gonna be interesting what summer brings.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we jump into the FMA aspect, just for you, what was your martial arts background pre-FMA?
So pre-FMA, so back in the early 80s, actually fall of 84, Sudbury's basically a karate town. You know, if you look at the gentleman that brought martial arts to Sudbury in the early 70s, they called him the karate nomad, Bob Dalgleish. So he basically came to Sudbury in the 70s, actually worked for the company that I actually work for. And he basically brought karate to Sudbury, and that's where I got my start. So when he left a handful of black belts basically behind, and they continued the arts. And my first instructor was actually Don Benoit in Guro Greg.
Okay.
Yeah. So back then there wasn't much. You had Guro. There was some basically Hapkido. There was some Taekwondo. There wasn't a lot of different martial arts. There was a small judo group, and that's basically where I got my start. Is basically in Guro Karate.
I think all of us at one time, before we got to eclectics, where it was FMA, Jeet Kune Do or Silat, we all started out in some type of traditional martial art, in our age bracket. We weren't privy to, to the folks today who could just jump right into it. I don't think they realize how lucky they are to the plethora of martial arts they have now, as opposed to when we were going through it,
Oh, yeah.
In California,
Yeah, and especially Sudbury being a northern town, like we're the big, up north, we're one of the basically biggest cities up north, but I'm 4 hours north of Toronto. And so that you had your small little group, and that's basically what was there. And obviously it gave me a solid foundation basically as I came up through the ranks. And then, as the years progressed, more people that either moved out of town, then came back to town, all those arts started migrating back in, and that's basically how I got exposed to FMA. Is basically about it's back in 96. You're talking 12 years later. Is my first.
It's the same thing here. I mean, it's like Ron Kosakowski, TFW Weapons. He was kind of like the first guy to bring, like Modern Arnis was in our state. Come to find out, doing these interviews, I would have never known that. I'm not doing these interviews, but Ron actually brought like the Asano blend, graph. I mean, like really was kind of the trendsetter as far as our state. Now it's all over the place now, but but I'm talking like, late 80s, early 90s, so kind of a big deal for Connecticut, as small as we are. And, so with your regards to FMA, what was your first experience with whom and when?
So basically it was the fall of 96. So my present, obviously I run Sudbury School of Martial Arts in Sudbury, Ontario, and the gentleman that started Sudbury School of Martial Arts, Mike McGuire, his boys were doing, they're into the movie industry. And one of his middle boys, he was actually doing straight to video movies with a gentleman down south. And his instructor was June De Leon from Kelly De Leon.
Oh, yeah.
Paul Rabkowski. So he came up. He actually brought them up for a seminar, and it was actually kind of cool because we met them at the school before we went to the area, the hall where we actually had the seminar. And he says, "Do you have a pair of sticks?" I'm like, "No, I don't." Obviously first exposure. So he opens up his trunk, and there was this trunk full of rattan. Yeah. So he goes, "I'll pick you out a nice stick." Eh? And I actually still, I obviously over time, you beat on them, and you end up, like, I go through several sets of sticks a year now, just from the amount of classes and everything that I do on a weekly basis. But I still have the half of the one stick because I broke it in half, and I still have the original. And it was, so he picked out a set of sticks. We went to the hall. We spent, it was an 8-hour seminar, and we actually have it on videotape. So it was cool. So what I was able to actually expose that digital, I still have the copies of that. That was my first taste. So that was the fall of '96.
So June De Leon, I mean, I know he's still up around there. I think if I'm not mistaken, an interview with Joe Apostol, I think he kind of started with June De Leon, if I'm not mistaken. So what's as far as his style is concerned, is it mostly stick based?
Yeah. So I know he like Paul was a weak half guy as well, so he fought weak half. But I know from my understanding, he's got a Pikiti base. He's got some Pikiti base, and as well he has Kelly and Lacoste blend.
Lacoste,
Lacoste Santo blend. Because I know he was one of the guys, he would host Dan and Santo regularly. And actually, shortly after I trained, it was a couple years later, I still kind of kept in contact. But he ended up hosting Dan and Santo, and that was my first chance. I got a chance to meet Dan that year. That would have been in 98.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but back then, of course, I went to the seminar and I was just completely blown away because he only had a little bit of exposure from that one seminar with June and Paul. Yeah. I went into that seminar with knowing nothing, and it was pretty overwhelming for the amount of material.
It's very overwhelming.
The experience was phenomenal.
Yeah, the experience is phenomenal. Like Larry Hartzell used to come out to Connecticut via because Ron was underneath them, but it was I mean, like, you're trying to take notes, they're on to the next thing. It just was beautiful. It just was like a joke. The experience is incredible, what you're being exposed to from all the different systems, all that. But if you're not going to seminars regularly, man, it's tough, man. It's just tough.
I took notes. Back then you didn't have you didn't have the ability to say go videotape yourself on the side. So I'm taking notes, and I look back at my old notes, and I'm like, because I was brand new at the time with zero experience. And same like with Hartzell, I have several friends that actually are through the Hartzell lineage, with Paul Irish through Ontario and everything. So
it's tough, man, when you're doing that. So then so from there, like, so you're kind of training June De Leon system.
And just taking the material kind of, because I was fortunate that he let us videotape the seminar. So I had that, videotape of material that I was able to kind of just train on my own and train with the people at the school. Because of course at the time, basically Sudbury School of Martial Arts was basically a karate school, and it didn't have any of that FMA base. And then several years later, Black Belt magazine, which was pretty well the only handful of magazines we were able to get up here. There was an advertisement. It was basically May of '99. And there was an advertisement for Laura Holmes. She was hosting Remy Pracis in Toronto. Wow. And so I was there. And of course, like I said, is with the one videotape, then I'm buying whatever book that's on the market that I can grab my hands on, for something that was FMA. I had the O'Hara Remy Pracis book, the yellow cover book.
You're the yellow one.
Yeah, so I was there. So I went down, and got the chance to meet him. And actually, that's the first time I actually met Dr. Tim. And of course, because I didn't know anybody when I went down. I was by myself. I go around introducing, so I got a chance to meet, people over time. I realized that I've obviously been
Yeah, at
training.
that time who they were, right?
Yeah, and it was just, hi, I'm Tim. Hi, I'm Craig, and that was
Right.
about it. And and then and then I was like, I was sold on that seminar. It just felt very comfortable.
Mm.
I even felt more comfortable than the material that I got exposed to through June. And I think because of the base, because having a karate base, and then also I had already been doing some boxing, a little bit of boxing as well. And Mike McGuire was very big on cross training with other systems as
Mm.
well. So that boxing karate-esque base that Professor Remy had in his system, just on the way he moved, felt comfortable, felt good. And so I was like, okay, where can I find Modern Arnis in Ontario? So it was, and Olympic Karate, which was Mike Donovan, had a blend because he kind of brought the modern to the London area through the Kempo karate systems that he was teaching. So a gentleman named Paul Dowdy actually replied to one of my emails back then, when there wasn't really much social media, but there was emails.
Yeah, right. There was still emails
in the early 2000s, right? And so I went down to London and did some training, and I went down several times to train with him. Actually, I had Paul up here actually for a seminar, and he was actually hosting Datu Tim fairly regularly as well. And that's where I started getting more exposure to Datu Tim. And then, yeah.
So
and then, go ahead.
Yeah, just jumping back, piggyback a little, as far as like, so when you went to the Price's seminar, one of the things that fascinates me about, and again, a lot of this, I kind of came to know just by virtue of doing these interviews, just the magnitude that he had, far as getting into like those, traditional schools, and then kind of not overwhelming them, but really kind of blending in with them.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a success story, like what he did. It's almost just genius. I mean, like, what I mean? Instead of like trying to trample existing programs and all that, he modified, I don't know if modify is the correct word, but definitely made it where it's easy, adaptable for folks to learn. And that just, wow.
Yeah, I
Incredible.
think.
Found too.
Oh yeah, actually, I agree with that point for sure. And that, like I unfortunately I only had a chance to meet the man once. I was blown away. Everybody always talks about you had to feel him to really know what he was able to do. And whenever I go to any kind of seminar, regardless of what it is, I'm always going to ask questions. If I'm not sure, and I did ask him the question on one of his locks, and he put a lock on me. And yeah, the pain was incredible. But it was like the learning opportunity was pretty phenomenal. And he was very charismatic. That one time I had an opportunity to see him. There are all kinds of people actually that just came to visit him just to see him while he was there. And I'm glad I had an opportunity to see them. But going back to your comment about the material, obviously coming up from a Northern Ontario, which has a huge karate base, whenever I've been able to teach at local seminars, because we have a lot of multidiscipline seminars where they'll have a whole bunch of people get together and share their respective arts. And I'm the gentleman that's always introducing that FMA base. I can interrelate, obviously, with the karate groups, and it's not necessarily just because I have a karate background, but it's also the material actually fits the moves. Like and a lot of the base, when I started learning the core basics, it was like, well, that's exactly like my hook block, or that's exactly like the way I move for this particular strike, stance, etc. And I was able to interrelate a lot of the stuff. And then all I have to do is put a stick in the person's hand, or if we're doing any kind of our blade work, it was actually simple base stuff. So I think that was a really neat way. And if you look at the core base of modern, it does tend to fit, because some of the systems that are more circular might not fit into the linear striking of a lot of karate systems, where modern modern, especially the single stick, you're upright in basically a modified boxing stance, which fits right into the karate systems.
Yeah, it was just, like, I mean, he, again, way ahead of the curve. I mean, and it's no wonder, the way he went about it, as far as no wonder why he was all over the, Western Hemisphere. I mean, obviously not just charismatic, but genius in that, making it blend and like that without like a hostile takeover, you know what I mean? Or so different, where it was hard to kind of melt them together. So, I mean, the guy just, saw something. I mean, and so when you reference single stick, again, I don't claim to be a Modern Arnis guy. I've seen some of his stuff. But so, like, for instance, like when you're doing the single Sinawali and stuff like that, for instance. Okay.
Well, single stick. So Remy his specialty was the single stick, and you get in close range to grab you, right? Where Ernesto, he was a double stick guy. So there's a plethora of different basically Sinawalis in that pattern, and then Roberto the youngest was the stick and dagger. And with like, so we do like single Sinawali, we'll do it 2 sticks, like double stick, but also do it single, because if you do it a single stick, that dovetail into our core drills, which is basically solo baston, okay, then moves into the tappy.
Okay.
So
okay. Yeah, tappy, right. That's another big one, the tappy, right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the core, that's the core, and everything kind of one of the main core, and that's what everything builds on. Where the solo baston semi-sparring. So when you get in the solo baston, it's basically learning the long range into the close range entry. So it's the single Sinawali pattern, but you're just doing it with 1 stick.
Right, exactly. I've seen that. You're going here, there, and then back, and you're making the top X, bottom X alternating.
Yes. Yeah, and then allows you to crash and enter, be able to learn how to check the hand, grab the stick. And Professor was, just like a genius in terms of locking. So he would lock you up, and he watched some of the videos, and the second he put his hands on you, you were locked up. And it's a really phenomenal drill. It's to sit there and learn. And that's one thing I like a lot of the core drills. The simplicity in Modern Arnis actually makes it really advanced. It's because you look, there's a like, I like to categorize things, in terms of my science brain, because of what I do for a living. And I look at the 4 core drills that we do. That's the way I categorize. But you take that, and there's so much in each of the drill so as you get comfortable, Joe, you can just keep on adding and pulling things out of it.
Okay.
And outside of just that reaction, the timing, basically the attribute building in the drill, a lot of times I like to reverse engineer one bit and piece and see, can I pull it off in a sparring aspect?
Right.
Which is a big core of what I do now in terms of our art, is can I take our Modern Arnis concepts and actually apply them to the contact stick dueling aspect, through the Dog Brothers and that type of venue.
Yeah, which we're going to get into a little down the line.
And so there's a lot of practicality behind the stuff, but it's to pull it out. Because sometimes, and I'm sure you've probably seen that because of your experience and all the different arts, sometimes a drill becomes a drill, and then it becomes redundant because you're not really getting anything out of the drill.
Yeah.
When you just go through the motions and there's really nothing there. But if you're just working a specific attribute or different reaction, different timing, that's fine. But if you're trying to pull some practicality out of it, how do you do that?
I think, it's interesting you say that, because one of the issues with me is now, and, granted, I was probably martially immature at the time. Matter of fact, I know I was. I was just like, I was like, man, box from Brada, man, like, okay, I got it. All right. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I just, but now when I look back, I've kind of reformed some things with my students, putting in, like, at certain points, like, okay, look for recovery on the strike. He's going to come back at you. You know what I mean? Like really kind of dissecting it, reassembling it, and making it, useful and all that. Whereas back then, I just didn't have the maturity to do that. So
Yeah.
I think there's things you could do. And what I'm getting at is I think it's at some point, advanced students or instructors, I think they should re-look at like stuff like that. They've kind of were dismissal of it initially, and that's what I've done. And it's amazing, like some of the finds I'm doing. But again, in the beginning, sometimes you're just not aware, or you don't want to be aware.
Yeah, absolutely. And you go back to your first few drills that you learn. It's like, man, how come I didn't see that years ago?
Or like, why didn't I think out of the box?
Yeah.
So just for the folks who are watching, can you just briefly explain tappy tappy?
So I guess the easy way. So tappy tappy, if at these is, so we start off with the single Sinawali, so you're in that long range aspect. Okay. So kind of that feeler. And then at some point you do an entry. So you're trying to bridge the gap from a single stick, long range strike into a close range. And then what we call it butting range. So we do a rolling motion. So a lot of times people see it and they're like, okay, what the heck are you actually doing? And you have to so it's kind of working different puño strikes, either from an angular, an inside line, and then when it gets into so that's the solo baston aspect. And then we learn how to break out. So if I grab your stick, so one of the drills is when we're butting and we're rolling, we'll grab the stick and I'll try to hit you in the leg. Your job is try to release my grip, depending on the different releases that we practice, and kind of get out of the line of fire for that leg strike and then go back in the long range. So that's the starting of it. So it's long range, the short range entries and releases. And then when you get into tappy tappy, it becomes, that's where you add the Balintawak basically aspect, where you're actually giving a give and take feed. Okay. And then and that's the whole idea. It becomes a give and take. And then when you start adding the different aspects, that's where the locking, controlling, disarming. So once both partners are comfortable with that give and take, release, entering, and releasing, and then what we do is try to mess each other up. We'll look at different entries, different grabs, or you just try to take the partner's stick away, or if you grab the stick and feed something and lock them up. So it's kind of working all the different close range attributes.
Okay. Oh, yeah, because I've heard it enough, and I'm sure maybe I've seen it, just didn't know what it was called. But I've definitely seen the single Sinawali.
Yeah.
And all that. So from the single Sinawali, you can bridge into tappy tappy.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. That's the far end is the tappy tappy. So or solo baston semi sparring, which is the first little bit, which is learning how to enter from long range to close range butting and releasing, and then back out, in and out, long range. And if you have lots of room, I'm lucky with my space and the space I have, we can actually kind of move around almost like you're starting into like a little bit of a dueling aspect. And then when you get into tappy tappy, that's when all the other stuff comes into play with the locking, the disarming, the tie-ups, binds, etc.
I think people like once in a while I forget as well that there is Balintawak in Modern Arnis, and I wonder if I'm assuming folks know that, or perhaps maybe they don't. Once in a while I do forget that until I get a Modern Arnis guy on here, and then I'm reminded of it. But we got some folks jumping in here already, and some Canada folks, if I'm not mistaken. We got Jeremy, that guy Jeremy. We got Eric Brian from Florida. We got Frank Chakowski, Connecticut. GM Bobby Tabata.
James
awesome. Hey James, you won something in the raffle, believe it or not. Every raffle we have, that guy wins something. And we got Terry, Guru Terry, and we got Sean Zerger. All right, so
Sean, awesome. Yeah, I haven't seen Sean in a bit. Yeah.
Hopefully now with COVID going away.
Exactly. Definitely like to get
everything.
Well, hopefully, because I know there's supposed to be another gathering coming up fairly in July. So
you guys should be fine. So then, so overall, what I'm getting from you is that the reason why modern needs resonate with you was kind of the packaging or the organizational structure of it. Is that, am I
Yeah,
correct in that?
absolutely. It felt comfortable with basically kind of my martial DNA that was already in me for basically you're looking at probably 16 years. With basically my karate background, when I started the basically Modern Arnis, it felt comfortable. And when I started training with Datu Tim, his teaching style and the way he actually broke down the material made a lot of sense, and I can relate to a lot of the material related very well to basically what I did. And there was actually times where I came in and I said, well, I would do something, and he said, well, that's this move from Modern Arnis. And I'm like, oh, okay. So there was a lot of correlation between the way I originally moved and the way basically Modern moved.
Wow. So what? So now you've met Tim,
Yep.
Dr. Tim, and when did you kind of officially kind of seek him out for your, I guess, main instruction in Modern Arnis?
Well, back into so the gentleman that I was training off and on with in London, life happens as usual, and we ended up losing contact for a little bit. And one of the gentlemen that was actually under Paul Dowdy actually opened up a school. And his grand opening, so I went down to London, and Dr. Tim was actually there for the grand opening, and he was teaching some of his basically his templates that he was working on at the time. And so I started talking to him, and I asked him, I'd like to come out and train with him. And he invited me down to West Seneca. That was the first time I even crossed the border. I hadn't even been out of Canada. And okay. Yeah, so it's and that was 2000 spring of 2005. And I went down. He put me up at his place. Basically got his big Thor, his old basically 130-pound lap dog sitting on me, basically getting to know me that weekend. And I literally did 4 days of training with him. And I was lucky back then. I was working shift work, so I was able to schedule some trips around my shift schedule. So I actually went up on a weekend, and then I stayed Monday and Tuesday as well. Then I went back. And I did privates with him for a couple of days, took his classes, and we just trained, and I was sold. Basically, just how genuine he was in terms of just putting me up at his house, and the information just, okay, this is it. This is what I want to do.
So what resonated like that you wanted to continue with him as an instructor? So was it just the way he presented the information, the packaging, his organizational structure, or what?
Yeah, I kind of live with everything. I like the way he laid things out in terms of it was a systematic approach. It wasn't, sometimes when there's certain drills, it's as you get comfortable with the material, you need to go outside the box, as we were kind of just talking about earlier, right? But you need that foundation. Because if you just say, okay, I want you to do whatever, well, if you don't have whatever in your DNA, it's what do you, so now, but the way he systemized things in each of the 4 drills, you start off with this base, then add this and this, and then, okay, once you have this, put it into the drill. Okay, mess it up, stress test it a little bit. Okay, drill, and just like one of the sayings, like if you want to get good at a front kick, you practice a front kick. Well, if you want to get good at using a front kick, put it into a drill or spar with it. But if you want to get a really solid front kick, you just got to put hundreds of reps for your front kick. Yeah, exactly. But if that's great, I can sit there and kick a punching bag as hard as I can, or kick a punching bag as hard as I can. But you put a live person in front of me, and if I can't hit them every time they move, well, that front kick is kind of useless. And the way he systemized things, you get good at the core material, and then you throw it in the drill to test your timing, test your reaction, test your ability to use it. And I think just the way he structured that,
Hmm.
it was a nice way. And he does that a lot with pretty well all the core material. He builds templates to allow people to systematically learn the material
Okay.
in manageable chunks, and then you try to use it and apply it.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be doing something right. I mean,
Yeah.
gosh, between all the seminars he's doing and what have you, I mean, he's clearly, he's got a system together in the way he approaches it and delivers it to his students. I mean,
Yep.
It's got to be something, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you started with him officially what year?
Spring of 2005.
And ever since 17 years. Okay.
17 years. I've had the fortune to basically all over the world with them. And up until the last 2 years, I'm usually down in Buffalo every 5 to 6 weeks.
Right, because then COVID, yeah.
So you know what? I still got a chance to, every month I was online, with him. And then, and usually basically every week and every couple of weeks, the board would actually meet and we would chat and catch up. And then we would go through stuff on our own as well, together as a group. But, obviously virtually the material was there. I was fortunate too that, my son is one of my assistant instructors. So I had a body to use.
Oh, that's good.
Which was great, and then when things opened up, I had a few regular guys that I train with. So that's the nice thing. I did have somebody to actually put hands on. But obviously when it comes to working with different people, when, two people work together all the time, you start to kind of read each other, to each other. And then when you go down and actually, mix it up with somebody else that has a completely different timing, then you realize, yeah, I'm a little rusty when it comes to some of this stuff.
Yeah, when you get somebody right, that's just different, which is obviously a good thing to do, but then initially it could throw you off. And so I tell you, what I most admire about Tim, because I'm not a Modern Arnis guy, so I've seen him teach when he came down to Connecticut and what have you, is that just what he does for FMA community. I mean, this guy brings in different people from different systems.
Mm-hmm.
He does a lot of things he doesn't have to do for promotion overall.
He does, absolutely. I've been around him for, like I said, let's see, that we're talking 2005, so we're talking 17 years now. And he's basically introduced me to a lot of people, and the people that he brings in, it always benefit his organization. They always benefit basically his students and basically his distance students. Because I just know, like Guro Roger Gullis.
Yeah.
I actually met Guro Roger my very first camp.
Via him. Right.
He was a guest instructor.
Yeah.
And you know what? He's been a friend ever since. And the material I learned from him has really enhanced on a lot of my stuff that I do.
Yeah, no, for sure. I just think it's pretty remarkable what he does. And that matter of fact, he probably, without anybody off the top of my head or thinking about it too much, I think he's right on the top of doing that, like getting different people from different styles or making people inclusive from different styles.
Oh, great. Oh, yes. I definitely.
I think he's just phenomenal in that regards. I mean, he's done, like, I haven't known him nowhere as long as you have. And what he's done for me already, I mean, it's just been like, he didn't have to do that. Like, he didn't have to do anything.
Every camp I've missed, I think I missed one camp since 2007. Even during the last 2 years, I still attended the camps virtually. And every camp that he's ever put on, either it's the main camp in May, and then also we have an instructors camp in August. Every May, there's always a guest instructor, and he's had a lot, and he's hosted multiple symposiums over the years where you get multiple different systems involved. So from from all their respective arts, not just FMA based. And he's also been a very big proponent of getting people from other systems and hosting their, their events.
Yeah, he's just, it's like he really goes out of his way to do it, and I just think he doesn't get enough credit for that. I'm going to start just broadcasting it out here. The other thing I admire about him too, he just lets it go.
Yeah.
Like as far as like truth and all that, like he does something like I'm not really good at sometimes. And I'm getting better at it, the beat. But I'm don't really about it tactfully, but he just lets it go. And like I just don't have that. Like I'm trying to be a little more, but I'm not gonna force it. You are who you are, you know what I mean? But he just like I tell you, man, he just all right, so June de Leon.
Yep.
Modern Arnis.
Yep.
What other FMA styles have you kind of played around with during your tenure with Dr. Tim, I guess?
Oh boy, I think one thing is in terms of expanding on the arts, there hasn't really been too many arts outside of the Praise Arnis. I think probably Guro Greg is probably the his material is probably the most exposure I've had. Because I got it when he was actually coming up to Michigan. I was always out at Michigan. He's come to Ontario a few times, and then when I was able to make his online classes on the weekends, getting that material as well. But through Datu Tim, because he's always had multiple guest instructors, everything else, I think probably the next in line that I've had the fortune to train with the most would probably be GM Bobby Tabata. Dr. Tim's had him up multiple times. And and I always enjoy training with him. And actually, even with our last trip to the Philippines, when we were in Cebu, we got a chance to train with all kinds of different branches of Balintawak. And GM Bobby was actually in the Philippines, and we got to train with him in the Philippines, which was awesome too. So
yeah, he's such a charismatic, good guy.
Yes. Yeah. And I always loved his sessions. I loved the
good guy.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. It's again, I just think there's something there, and and again, I wouldn't know any of this had I not done these interviews. I got a pretty good exposure to Modern Arnis just by I've interviewed a lot, and I tell you, and they all a bunch of them do camps.
Yep.
Chad Bailey he calls him progressive, but it's definitely Modern Arnis in there. But he brings different people in, and I don't know. I think more should do it. I think more more should do it, and hopefully more of these Modern Arnis guys will try to emulate what he's doing, because I think what he's doing is just phenomenal. Not only for Modern Arnis, but just for FMA as a whole.
And like the list that I can give you, like Michael Harone, was another one that I got a chance to train with a couple times, which is amazing. A lot of the combatant groups, because obviously being the brother art of Modern Arnis, through Nesto, I've had the fortune to train with multiple different Modern Arnis groups overseas in Denmark, in Finland, all over. We actually, through some of the stuff we do, we got a chance to get into some defense lab, which obviously is through that Bob Breen lineage. I got a chance to meet Bob Breen, and Norman, and then Phil Norman. And actually, I've been training basically Ghost Elusive Combat pretty well through the entire pandemic, and I'm still doing virtual classes with Jay Clark every weekend in the mornings, trying to expose. And just the FMA influence on that material is one thing that really felt comfortable, and that's why I really enjoy basically that kickboxing aspect as well.
That's wow. So first, back to Dr. Tim. First, just if you had to name just people for watching, what are some of the key principles he instilled in you, from him?
From him, and for me is basically one of the big key phrases is do your work. So his big thing is do your basics, work your materials, ask questions, and he's always been one and always think outside the box. That's one thing is he's always been very big in thinking outside the box. He's never been scared of actually putting on that white belt again and basically training with anybody. I've actually attended seminars with him. Both of us going there to a seminar to learn on more than one occasion. And that's another thing that I admire about him as well.
100%, man. Because I tell you, I'm saying this now. This is where I'm kind of now going to step into that Tim Hartman lane. There's a lot of Modern Arnis guys. I'm not saying all of them. But there's a good that just won't train in other stuff. Like it's just, and I know, and that's not just Modern Arnis. There's other there's a lot of the groups, and if you're comfortable in your art, that's what you are, and that's fine. But I think I've always been a very big proponent is when I like to be put out of my comfort level. That's a huge thing for me, and I'm not afraid to basically go out and learn something new and be put out of my comfort level, and basically realize that I don't know what I don't know. I know.
There's still lots more that I do need to know.
Yeah, and I guess it's right. I mean, if you're content where you are, I mean, but I guess where it bugs me is when you hear saying, "Well, I'm always a student," but then you look at what they're doing, and they're, well, no, not really.
No, that's it.
You're still doing. You're not like Chad Bailey's here now, what I mentioned before. Like, that guy, he explores different stuff.
All the time. Yeah, actually, hopefully one of these days I'm going to get a chance to get down to train with the man. I've met him online multiple times, but I haven't had a chance to meet him in person.
Yeah, but they're not all like that. But they say they're students, and I'm like, student of what?
Always, yeah. Actually, I love actually going to seminars with. I have a handful of students that that are interested, because I find, obviously, I've been doing martial arts for just about 38 years now. You have those students that are just comfortable doing their classes. They're just comfortable doing that material, and that's perfectly fine. As long as they're getting something out of it. And then you want that small fraction that invest a lot of time and effort in going outside and actually learning from other people outside of their training or wherever they are. I've been all over the world, basically teaching. I've actually helped teaching and learning all over the world and all over the US. And if I have an opportunity to learn from somebody, I take it. And there's been a few people on my bucket list, and a couple of them are no longer with us. And
I know, I got a bunch. I know, sad to say, some of them are no longer. I know. It's I'm telling you, for the student, here's the thing. My thing with the students: if the students are content, they're getting off the couch. They're doing something.
Absolutely.
Maybe they just don't have the inclination. Or just like to drive to do other things. On that's okay. I mean, fine, but at least they're doing something.
Agreed.
Head systems instructors who proclaim things and that they're not. But I guess that's in every art, I guess. It's not obviously that's just not isolated to FMA, of course.
I always tell my students, and especially I hammer this in the kids more so than the adults, is it's my job to make my students better than me. In terms of what I know, it's a different, but I want them to be better than me. I want them to actually make the art grow, continue it. Out of that 12, out of the 12 kids I have in my class right now, there might only be a handful that might continue on with the art into their adulthood. Some of them might just be a training group. Some of them might actually join another school, maybe teach. Some of them might even start their own school. whatever they do, as long as they can continue expanding art and making it grow. And
Yeah.
because it shouldn't stop with me.
No, it's funny. Datu brings that up. Like, and,
Yeah.
we've had this talk, me and him, and he's got a concern about Modern Arnis continuing to go. Like, in other words, like that we need to keep promoting black belts to keep it going so they go out and teach and perpetuate the art and all that. And I'm like, you guys are in a hell of a lot better shape than other arts. I'm like, but he has like a deep rooted concern. And I'm not saying it's not legitimate. It actually shows his passion.
And I think that's what it's all about. He actually, it's his whole life. This is what he's been doing for a living. This is what, and he wants to see the art continue and prosper, basically for the respect of professor. And he helps promote his students all the time, in terms of, okay, go out and teach. This is what I want you guys to do. Keep the art growing. It's wonderful that you see there's a lot of schools that might not do, say, core modern, or but they have aspects of that in their system, and you know what? There's some stuff that I've actually borrowed from some of the other systems I've had an opportunity to train with. One of the first time I went down to Philip Jelinas' school, he was hosting Leo Gahe. And there was a drill that I just loved, and I still do this drill today. I don't even know the name of the drill. I just call it the bikini drill. And it's a really nice power drill that we did. And it's like, but you're given that kind of respect, this isn't something I made up. This is where I got it from. And I think with Dr. Tim, is the art's going to be around, but you don't want it just to disappear into obscurity, and people don't know where the stuff came from.
I get it's a concern. I think, and I'm not saying it's not legit.
Yeah.
But one of the things I was kind of joking with them, look at Lameco. If you want to see a system that's of concern, just for me doing these interviews, I can tell you right now, 10, 20 years from now, to me, that's a system that's, again, I just say concern. I think you guys are pretty decent shape. And all that. But again, though, I think it's probably good that he is advocating that so it doesn't ever occur. So props to him.
Maybe that's it. Yeah.
Doing it,
And I didn't realize, because I see, I guess they're with the Lamenko lineage, if you're saying that, it's, I guess, where's the clusters of material.
Look at who teaches the pure backyard. In other words, don't look at who got the seminar content in there. Or,
gotcha.
If you look at the backyard, the conveyors of the system, the holders of the system. You got Roger, David Gould, Felix just passed.
One
of the Flores are doing it. Bong Avia. I think a couple guys in Europe, but it's not a long, extensive list. And sadly, and it's such a great system. So when so you really dove into the aspect of sparring. Like what you've kind of basically and Tim had a show on this, if I'm not mistaken, with you as a guest, and he kind of brought out not only kind of headline you and what you're doing, but also made a point to mention that, why don't Modern Arnis guys smart? I didn't get to see the whole episode, but it was intriguing enough for me to bring it up in this interview.
Okay.
Twofold question. Why did you go outside the box and venture out there where most don't? And the second question is, why don't more Arnis guys do what you're doing?
I guess on the first aspect, I know earlier on you had asked me basically what kind of sold me on training with Dr. Tim. That was the one thing I didn't kind of really mention is he sparred.
Okay.
Right from very shortly after I started training with him, and it was obviously it was just padded stick. It was point and continuous, and that's because he would have his tournament on a regular basis. And that was very intriguing. And coming up from an old school karate background, we sparred almost every class. Like
Yeah, the class.
there were 2-hour classes. It was like basics, basically you do conditioning, basics, forms, and fight.
That's what we did in Taekwondo. Warm up, your basics, your forms, and get gear on.
and then when I went down and started training with Datu, obviously I didn't do any sparring for a little bit. And then all of a sudden, then I look, it's like, wow, this is actually pretty cool. And that I could, and then that was something that really, okay, how can I do this more? And then in 2009 was when I actually went down and did the Dog Brother camp. That's where I met actually Philip Jelinas for the first time. I met Eric Noss and Mark Denny. Yeah, and Renee. Renee Koplo had hosted it, and that was the first time I done live stick. And just prior to that, one of Philip Jelinas' students actually lived up north, and I had met him at a Leo Guy seminar, and he says, "Craig, you got to try this out." So, and you got to try, like, because Phil's guys obviously all fought basically live stick, and I know the Pikiti groups do that as well. And so I was like, okay, and the second I did that, it was like, okay, yeah, I'm sold. And it's a completely different aspect in fighting with the padded sticks. As of course, there was always that big stigma around with the padded sticks. I spar padded sticks all the time, regularly here with my students, because not everybody wants to do the live stick. But I find, and the biggest thing, there's good and bad about padded sticks, and that's why, like, we talked about that in the whole interview about the difference, padded stick, live stick, whatever type of sparring. There's good and the bad about everything. And you got to basically train and understand basically what you're working. Like I enjoy the point stick sparring because it works your speed and your basically your blocking kind of sword rules. I love doing that. I love continuous because it tells me where I'm off. If I don't cover myself, I'm getting clocked, whether it's padded stick or live stick. And then when I did the live stick, that gave me the realization that I wasn't just going to crumble into a little pile if somebody hit me, but if they hit me in certain areas, I'm going to drop. And it also gave me a huge respect for the weapon that sometimes padded sticks don't, because people will take a shot to give a shot with a padded weapon.
Yeah, they'll just trade.
They don't want to do that with a live stick.
Yeah, they get in that training mentality because there's no consequence or very little.
And that's where I started kind of going into the aspect of, can I take our core material and use it in that stick dueling aspect, whether it's padded or whether it's live? Right. Because when I first started doing Dog Brothers type fighting and a lot of that, the live stick fighting, people that I basically associated with had a huge Pikiti tertia base. Yeah. And of course, I started trying to kind of move the way they move. Well, I don't move like that. And I got the tar beat out of me regularly.
Oh, you were trying to emulate their style.
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't move like that, so it wasn't good. Yeah. So then I kind of started taking a look at my material, and I was like, you know what? And that's why a lot of times I go down, Dr. Tim and I would kind of chat, and he would kind of, what about this? What about this? There's and there's several of the students that have actually done HEMA and other weapons, so we kind of talk sparring aspects. And George Harris is another one that I actually got a chance to chat with basically last year when I went down in December to train with Datu. And when I started looking at my material, and I'm like, hey, there's some really cool stuff. The Solo Baston Tappy Tappy, for example. Sometimes I'll take a small aspect out of that drill and we'll work that aspect with that stick dueling kind of mentality. And then what we'll do is we'll drill it. And then for the last 20 minutes, half hour of the class, we'll split the class into two, first half drilling, rest half sparring. And we'll do rounds where one person is attacking. And the only way you can actually defend against it is you either have to block, retreat, or you can counter with that part of the drill. Then you realize whether your drill works or not. And when you can pull it off, once or twice, you're like, wow, this is actually pretty cool.
Yeah. Plus you're fighting your own style too.
Yeah, and then you feel comfortable with your material, basically what you're working with. And I actually had an opportunity to go down in November of last year when things opened up, and Justin Patricio, we had a little, Paula was there as well. Justin Patricio put on this little sparring event, and we got to go down. My son came down as well as Jeremy Cadet. The three of us went down and we got to spar with different people outside of the school. So it was cool to kind of see that different timing, that different reaction, and whether that material worked. And you know what? I was able to pull off some material, and that's the one thing is you're not going to go out there and think you're going to pull it off all the time. Don't ever think you are, because you're never going to. But if you can pull it off, once, a couple times, I'm like, hey, you know what? This stuff works, and all you got to do is how do you make it better?
Yeah. I just think it's neat that you took your own style and made it work and not playing everybody else's game. I just think that's what's so admirable here. Like you took, okay, you know what? I'm going to take my minor and niece and I'm going to find a way to make it work. I think that's what's, and
at a black belt level, I always found, and that's where years ago, I always felt that at a black belt level, you got your basics down, you got your core down. And that's when you really start learning and that's when you start thinking outside the box. And certain people kind of start almost like specializing. It's like there's something that they really, really like. And it's okay, I'm going to really get into this aspect of my art. And in sparring with Dr. Tim right from the get-go, as an introduction into the art, and then getting into the live contact stick fighting, doing some of the other events, the gathering, to beat the crap out of cancers in Ontario. And it was like, this is what I want to really focus on. Can I take my material and apply it in that random, aggressive, chaotic setting?
Against other different styles.
Against other styles that don't fit my mold.
that's here's the thing too, because I don't think, and again, I don't know, I don't know this for certain. Again, I only base this, my kind of not fully known conclusion, on just the interviews I've done here. And I don't think a lot of the Modern Arnis guys have their students spar. And I'm not saying I'm not saying that's wrong. So I don't want the audience here to misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm just making a point as far as comparison in regards to you. So I always found it interesting that, I think I commend you that that you're taking the stuff and you're attempting to make it work. I just think that's great. I got a video. Matter of fact, I want to pull something up here, and maybe it's the event that you're referencing.
Okay.
What I found really neat about this is that, and this is something I want to do with somebody. I find it, I've done a little with it, but I want to continue doing it. Is long and short sparring. I just think it's such a juggernaut,
Stick like a stick and dagger, like a short weapon.
I just think it's so neat.
Dr. Tim had one when he has his La Bandera tournament. Because he would always have different events. Like one year he did have like almost like a recap style continuous. He had padded continuous, padded point. And one year he had a stick. Basically, it was a stick and dagger event for the adults, because he would have padded swords for the kids a lot of times. And the only time you were able to score a point was with the dagger.
Good for him to force the use of it.
That was actually a really cool event. So I know when I do at the either the gatherings and all that, there, if I get to do a short and long range weapon, I'm really always trying to get that short range in. And it's hard because people just want to swing, want to hit, and then you don't want to get hit by the long stick. And we use that short range. It's also because if you look at the core of what our single stick material, that live hand is always manage, monitor, delay. I'm grabbing you, I'm checking you, I'm pushing you, I'm punching you. And that using that short tool really enhances on that attribute.
No, I mean, I remember the first time I went, I was trying to really incorporate it, and yeah, there were some not so pretty, some pretty instances. Just gotta be honest, man. I'm like trying to insert this thing and like,
oh yeah.
I mean, but what I really like about this vid, you guys are not trying to kill each other. You're trying to really find a way to. It looks like from here, anyway. Just I'm not wasn't there, but it looks like you guys are trying to find a way to incorporate it without just hammering each other. So it looks like it's like a nice pace, you know.
Okay.
And all that. Kudos to you, both of you. I think this is incredible. You know, Connecticut's just a tough state, man. It's just. I would love to be around guys like you. You know what I mean? Like you could just play around, experiment this, and take it to the highest level you can. You know. But that huge fan of that. You know, kudos to you for doing that. That's awesome.
Well, awesome. And it's a big emphasis on my school. Obviously, at the adults usually start doing some sparring fairly soon. I usually wait for the kids till they kind of get a little bit of their base down before they actually get them to start sparring. But it's a phenomenal attribute building, like, you know, and it's just and working your core basics.
Yeah.
But again, I know there's a lot of groups that don't emphasize sparring, and some of them don't agree with it. And I'm not necessarily even pointing at the Modern Arnis group.
Yeah, so, yeah,
but I'm
right.
not, you know, because of my core. Yeah. But even I've seen there's a lot of schools that just don't spar outside of all kinds of different arts, and it's what the emphasis on their art is, and if that's what they want to get out as. But I think the only thing that I don't agree with is when people actually call a drill sparring. A drill is not sparring.
You're like, no, that's not sparring.
That's not sparring. That's not sparring.
No, I've seen some of that, and I try, you know, because I'm running FMA discussion, I just can't go out there and just start blasting people. It's not going to be a good look, or I'm not going to be a good role. You know what I mean? But I've definitely seen videos where you see the title like sparring, and then, like you said, they're like drilling.
And drills become random, and there's no ifs, ands about it. Like you got your core base, which is a structured part of the drill. Then it can become random. So you're developing all that reaction, the timing, the attributes, and all that. But you can't call it sparring.
No, I agree. I agree. And again, and folks that are watching, this is and I hope I'm not trying to speak for Greg here, but I think he's on the same page as me. We're not saying that's bad. Hey, if it do what makes you happy, your journey. You know what I mean? But can't label stuff that's not, I guess is what we're saying.
Hey, a core of what I do, remember, is sparring is a big focus on what I do, because that's where I'm trying, you know, that's what I've been focusing on for a long time and taking my art. But when you all boil down to it, Modern Arnis is a very hands-on system. We have our años, our forms, our stick forms, and our empty hand forms. But we also have application. So right away, you're putting mitts on people, you're putting hands on people. But basically the core of what we do is we're swinging a stick at somebody. So we're drilling right from the get-go. Like our first base drill is block, check, counter. So we're taking our basic striking, and I'm swinging a stick at you, I'm blocking, grabbing, and I'm hitting you. And then after that, you start building onto that, multi-striking, different striking movement. And then you start adding footwork, angles, pushing the person. So that way the person that's doing the initial strike is not just a striking dummy. They become reactive and start moving backwards. And then I learn how to disarm. Then all of a sudden I learn how to do empty hand against somebody swinging a weapon at me. So we're still drilling. Then we go into basically palace, which is now with the block, check, counter, that's an in strike. Somebody's trying to take that stick and just sink it into your collarbone, trying to sink it into your head. That's it. It's where the next strike, palace, somebody's trying to swing through. So how can I redirect and then and strike back, or how can I redirect and bridge the gap and get into stand up blocking, tappy? work what we were talking about. It's working that long range to close range,
And then coming
action back and forth. And then you've done some, you had mentioned Sombrada drill.
yeah.
Well, Sombrada drill is not, it's a bounce. It's an ad strike, bang, and you hit back. So it's a quick reactive drill.
Yeah.
Now if you look, we've got Palace. I got block check counter, Palace, my second, which is a through strike, and then you got Sombrada, which is an at strike. So you either got a quick in and out strike, a sinking in strike, or a fall through home run swing kind of striking. So now take different aspects of that, and then I'm going to take that and I'm going to spar with it.
I think it's great.
So then you're starting to build those attributes. So those drills are their requirement. They need to be there, because if you don't have a drill, even if you're doing a sparring drill, it's still a drill.
Yeah, right. At the end of the day, right.
Yeah. So drills are, at no point is those that are focused on drills, is it a bad thing? But don't call it drill sparring, because it isn't. It could be a random drill, develop certain aspects, but anybody that's had an opportunity to spar, regardless of what type of weapon or even empty hand, as soon as that becomes sparring, game changes.
Yeah. And again, like I guess they just got to be careful with the labeling.
Yeah, that's all. That's it.
So what do you? Okay, you teach. You have your own school, obviously, and all that. So
Actually, I'm in it right now. You can kind of see a little bit of the background there.
Yeah, definitely. So you're teaching FMA, obviously. Do you keep it separate from the other curriculum, or is it kind of all put in lumped in?
So basically, the only aspect, so the core of what I teach is Prices Arnis. That's it. That's what it is.
Oh, so basically,
it's core Prices Arnis. Yep. My adults, the only thing I add into it is, along with my modern forms, I do add some of my Guro forms in.
Okay.
And the reason I do that is the movements in that relate so well to the core in the modern, like in the Prices, because remember, is with the Prices Arnis, when I call it, it's because it's got the modern core with some of the combaton material in it. So that's why we call it Prices, to show respect to the family, the brothers. But some of that material in the Guro interrelates so well in the modern. That's why I kind of added as some attribute building for my students.
Yeah.
And then one of the gentlemen that's part of the WA organization teaches Shuriken Jiu Jitsu, and which is the huge focus on Shuriken is throws and takedowns. But it came from a Guro background, so that's so he's doing Filipino FMA, he's doing modern training with me, and I'm cross training with him in Shuriken.
Okay.
And the throws, a lot of the base throws that they have are a lot of the takedowns that we do in modern. And it's part of the curriculum from Prices, so it's just a nice mix. But when it all boils down to it, it's basically I teach as Prices Arnis. And there's always going to be aspects, right? Everybody's got their kind of feel. You go to another Prices, like say Thai body. He's got, because of his kung fu, he's going to have a certain influence on how he teaches. And so because of the other aspects that I do, as well as the Ghost elusive fighting, Ghost elusive combat that I do, the footwork is very triangular, very long range, very FMA flavor to it. I add that into the core what I do, because it mixes so nicely.
Yeah, right, blends. Okay, so then do you fall there? So do you fall under Tim's definition of full-time FMA school? Did he?
Yeah, that's basically I guess I am a full-time Prices Arnis school with an interjection of the other stuff in it.
Oh, you know what? Now I'm thinking about when we had those interviews, he might. Oh, you know what? We were keeping it to US. That's why. Okay, if we said North America, 100%, he would have brought your name up. All right? That makes sense now.
Yeah. So that's what I do. Is that's all I do. And like I said, I add the other aspects into my curriculum for my students. But the material, every belt is basically priceless.
That's awesome. So now, why you're teaching 5 and up, or
basically, I have the older kids. So basically, it's I have an 8 to 13, and then I have a teen adult class. So that's my core group right now, and then I have basically a conditioning class as well, which is more of a fitness program. And so what I do is I teach two kids classes and 2 adult classes of core curriculum material.
Yeah.
And every Tuesday, it's for the teen and adults, it's weapons sparring. So all we do is we drill. Like I said, we kind of take a piece of a drill, and that's all we do is we drill that for about the first half of the class, and then we gear up and we spar.
Wow. So my next question to you: How do you introduce them to sparring, and do you go in gradual incremental levels? How do you do it?
Yeah, actually, that's exactly what I do. So the example for the kids, what we would do is we'd start off with line drills, and I would get them to do there'd be myself and say the other instructors, and we would feed them specific techniques. And they would counter with like a block and a hit, a block and a hit, block and a hit, and we would get them comfortable with it. And then when I start off with the kids, and actually this is actually something that I got from Guro Roger from training with him, where he does the limb sparring, where you're only allowed to hit literally the arms.
Right.
And that's how I actually start off the kids, because I got so many new ones. I got to get them gear still. And it's literally a pool noodle with a small piece of rattan as a handle inside, and we're just tapping each other in the hands with a pool noodle, and just learning how to move back and forth and blocking. And then once we get the full gear, then we're allowed. And with the kids, I start off more point oriented. So it's a tap, okay, stop, blade rules, right?
Okay.
And then the adults, what I'll do is as they get same thing, we'll start off with limb sparring at first, just to get the reactions, get the footwork, get the timing. And then when we get into full body, we'll start off, like I mentioned earlier, where we'll drill material and say one person attacks, the other person has to counter with that. And then as we get comfortable, all right, then it's full out sparring, guys. Okay, random sparring, you can go. And that's where you see if people just revert back to the old, I'm just swinging at you and hope I can hit
swinging recklessly, or at least you go increments. That sounds awesome, though.
Especially that way, because I found when I started, especially the weapons class, when I just said, okay, everybody gear up, grab a stick, and away we go, it was rock'em sock'em robots. People were just wailing on each other because it's a padded stick and it stings like crazy, but it doesn't hurt like a chunk of rattan. And actually, even with when we do the progressive sparring a little bit lighter, we'll go live stick, but we go only say 40%. So we'll just work certain attributes. We'll go, it'll be a random type fighting, but it's not full blown out. And that way I find with the rattan, if we go lighter, but you're cleaner in your techniques. I don't know if you know it. Sometimes you will take a shot to give a shot, and that's not a smart way to fight.
No, I think that I do that too. I think it's such a valuable thing. Like, hey, you can only go at this percentage. If you amp it up, I'm going to have to stop you guys. You're going to constantly hear me stop. And you're going to get sick of hearing me. So just go at this percentage.
It's hard though. It's hard when, especially when it's that's the one thing that I like the padded weapons for specific attributes. And the one thing I don't like about the padded weapons is people will take a shot to give a shot. Yeah. And sometimes they don't respect it. So they'll get a shot. And sometimes, you got that trigger reaction where I've been hit and then I'm probably already in motion, or you just automatically react and the other person gets hit, even though you got a really good shot, and even if it was a piece of rattan. But with a padded weapon, I find people would get hit and there would be like a delayed reaction and they'd swing at the person.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Dude, if that was a harder weapon or a heavier weapon, you would react differently.
Yeah.
And the
Still kind
other
of
thing
good
about
hand
padded
shot.
weapons is, and that's why actually the sticks that I get, I like the hit sticks, and actually the ones from Guro Roger actually are really nice too.
You say the hit stick, like from the hit series?
Yeah, the hit series are really nice, and
I
then I
like those a lot.
Guro Roger that I got them as well from him as well, and they're a little more rigid, so you
What'd
get
you
a
get
little
from
more
him?
realistic recoil on a padded stick. Because sometimes with a padded stick, it doesn't have like a rattan will redirect; it'll bounce off. Like
Yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah.
sometimes it's you don't know where it's going to go when the person hits the stick.
So
And
back to Roger Sticks though. What do you're getting it from him? What are you getting from him?
yeah, it's well, he I guess he makes his own sticks. And he asked me about them, and I said, you know what? Yeah, send me a set, and I want to try them out. And I've been using them, and I like them. So
I'm gonna have to
I
try
just
it.
keep them
Oh, I
I keep
didn't
them for my
realize he.
small group, which is good. Just because, especially running a commercial school and everything like
Yeah,
that, you can't really be using homemade gear.
yeah. I
Yeah, so
mean,
I use the hit sticks with my students, but our small training group, we use those sticks, and I do like them. They're really good for specific that certain
I'm gonna have
attributes.
to talk to him because
Yeah,
I didn't realize he made them and also would sell them. I'm gonna have to talk to him
yeah,
definitely. Yeah, because I do like the hit series, but what I find though after time, they all break down at the end. So you're
they
spending like,
do.
and it's just like $40, right?
Yeah, well, and that's where for me is, especially with the hit sticks, is I really focus on the hand and the arm hitting. So if I'm doing full body, I'll go lighter with rattan.
Yeah, so
It does, it does
you're not
save.
ruining your
Yeah,
sticks, right?
because my teen parents aren't really happy if they're always dishing out, and $40
I know.
is
I
way more in
know.
Canada.
No, I know. I mean, even though you can get them at with a discount through
Yeah,
Century if you
yeah,
have a plan there, but still though, it's yeah. I mean,
yeah,
you don't want to be pricing them every 6 months. You know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah,
You know.
yeah. Because I
So
know
what?
once the foam is gone, I don't really want any. Because
No, 'cause that
had
plastic man at the end for
took
kids.
I took a guy's thumbnail off through a set of lacrosse gloves.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and
I
it's like, yeah,
know. I know when you're feeling that plastic, they gotta go. Yeah,
yeah.
I just toss them. So you got the camp coming up with him. So just
Yeah.
tell us about the camp. What's going on there?
Well, this is the 65th anniversary of Modern Arnis. So this is basically our first big camp kind of thing since things have really opened up.
Yeah.
And which is really nice. So there's people from Canada, people from all over the U.S. that are coming out. He's got multiple guests coming up that all have a connection to Professor. So that was the whole kind of thing about this camp. It's basically everybody that has a connection to Professor is going to be teaching at the camp, along with basically the course, the senior council. There's a bunch of us that are teaching as well, but most of the senior council. I'm out of the senior council. There's only two of us that never trained extensively with Professor. I was fortunate. I find myself very, very fortunate. I've actually had a chance to meet all three brothers. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I actually met Professor in '99. I met GGM Ernesto in 2009. He passed away in 2010 in the Philippines. And then I last several trips since 2011, I think. I've visited Grandmaster Roberto. So we got a chance to, and I even had a chance to go to the family home, which was where Professor Remy and the guys grew up, which was really cool. I got to see the beach, and that was the cool. Those are the cool things about those trips. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. So that's the whole thing about the camp is it's celebrating, the 65th anniversary of Modern Arnis, celebrating, the art that Professor actually joined. And also, I think it's kind of a little bit of a celebration of things opening back up and all of us getting together again.
Yeah, definitely on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's 3 day, basically 3 days. The camp's a 3 day camp, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Okay, and that's this
And
coming
then
week.
there's an extra training on Thursday as well. That's starting, so I'll be heading down bright and early Thursday morning.
I was
So
gonna
that way,
say that's coming up.
yeah. So I'll
Right.
be,
Okay.
yeah. So I'll be heading up there. So it'll be 4 days of training with everybody, and yeah, and it's yeah, basically at the headquarters of Dr. Tim's school. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and there's basically anybody,
Yeah.
and that's and the nice thing about the camps, like, the May camp is a wonderful camp to go to, because we've got the instructors camp, which is obviously for usually hyper own and obviously instructors, unless there's somebody that's, say, a distance student, you can sponsor them and say you can come to the instructors, because it's a little more, you know, higher level material, and going through the curriculum, right? And where the May camp, it's open to everybody. That's why, and that's one thing that's always been wonderful about the organization is we cross train with everybody. We go to everybody's events, all the different events. You got a chance to go to Terry Dow's event, which is, I was so bummed I couldn't go down with you guys.
That's
And
incredible.
yeah, and the May camp is the same idea. We get people from all different aspects. Gentleman that literally had never done Modern Arnis. He ended up coming to, actually, I think it was our August camp, and because he was talking to Datu, he literally got a hold of Datu out of the blue and says, "Can I come to your camp?" Never done Modern Arnis, never done anything, just came to our camp, and it's wonderful to see that we get people from all different systems, all different styles, and whether it's FMA or non-FMA, coming to the camps, and it's just and everybody just goes there and learn from all the instructors that go in. We train, we basically socialize. It's one of the, and every organization has their camps, and has that kind of flair to them. I've had an opportunity to go to a lot of different camps, and I've seen a lot of that as well. Obviously, I'm going to be a little bit biased because of the organization I belong to, and it's it's a very welcoming place. And the nice thing is when people go to a lot of these camps like this, you don't see that there's no ego. You're just going in there to learn. Just
which is always nice.
Work out, learn from each other, have a good time, take back what you can from the camp.
Yeah, definitely. That's what it should be all about. Yeah, 100%. I can see Datu really pushing that too.
Oh, he does. Yeah. Like he's been the biggest proponent of me cross training and other systems.
Oh, look what he's doing.
Huge. He's always been that. He's never been one of those guys, don't go train with that person.
No, what he's doing now. Yeah, he's proof. He's living proof of that. I mean, so what are future goals for yourself, school, what have you?
Well, right now, now that things are opening up, the kids' class is full. My other classes are starting to pick up, which is great. I'm hoping to start now I can actually start traveling more, which is wonderful, and I'm pretty excited about it. I've got the May camp coming up. There's actually a bunch of us, handful of seminars coming up over the next few months that I plan on attending. There's actually a bunch of us getting together down south in the beginning of June for a little sparring kind of day, kind of like fight day. Hoping to take in some gatherings. My goal is to either get into the US or overseas gatherings. And once I'm able to start traveling with Datu a little bit more, that's definitely a big goal of mine as well. And hopefully I can start doing some more seminars. For a while, it was actually I was actually doing a handful of seminars, here and there, especially around, up north. We have a handful of little events that used to occur regularly. So I was always a big part of this and always pushed those. So it was great kind of interacting with almost like Terry Dow's event, same idea, but obviously on a much smaller scale,
It was overwhelming. For me, initially, I'm like, it was just, you're walking in there and you're seeing all these people.
Yeah, and then and I know, and I obviously continue now that we can actually start getting together. I do want to get into a little more of the Dog Brother gatherings, and because I noticed the tribal gathering is actually going on this weekend. I would have loved to have been there, but it wasn't in the cards, between work and everything else going on. as I noticed Philip Jelene, one of Philip's students, me. He was actually down there, and Mario Luberg from Loki's group out in BC were fighting down there, as well as James Bond. I'm like, I wish I could be there with the guys, but maybe next year.
Yeah, you can't do it. Yeah, I mean, you'd like to, but so once in a while I ask people this. So, as far as our FMA community, what changes would you like to see as a whole for the positive?
For the positive, as a whole.
For the positive, yeah.
Well, I think I'm starting to see a little bit of that, and it's just that little more of that open-mindedness. And it's not necessarily just the FMA. I've seen it in multiple different systems, right? I came up from old school karate, and a lot of times it was, this is all you did. You're not allowed to cross train. And then over the years, people started being a little more open. And I'm open that sharing. Just because I'm going to train with somebody at their school across the road, or even on the other side of town, doesn't mean I'm actually jumping ship. And I'm starting to see a lot more of that in the FMA community, and I'd love to see that continue. And I'm starting to see a lot of more of these multidiscipline FMA events, which is awesome to see.
They're not going away.
Yeah. And then that way everybody's open to sharing. And remember, not everybody's style is going to be your bag, your cup of tea, but everybody's got something to offer.
No, for sure. You're open-minded enough.
Yeah, and you know what? You might take one little aspect. It could be just the way the person teaches the material. You could that's their material just was not for you, but just the way they were able to present and bring it across to the group and progress. I'm like, you know what? I like the way he does that. Or I like the way he places his foot. You know what? I do the exact same technique, but I step here instead of there. I like the way he moves better. Yeah. And that's starting to be, I'm starting to see that more, which is great. And I'd like to see that continue. And then because you're going to have a lot, you're not going to have these little close knit groups. And maybe the whole thing we were kind of mentioning about, where Datu's talked about the Modern Arnis, and then you were mentioning about Lamenko. There's so many systems that are kind of fading away into obscurity. And that's why I just commend you for what you do with this FMA discussion and how many different people you bring on this show. Like, what am I, 293?
It was 293. Coming up to
so 293 episodes you've been able to put out there. And it's so many people have gained exposure. And that's just such a wonderful thing. And then now, other people might, some of these small systems that are kind of slowly fading into obscurity may not disappear. That would be a great thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's funny. Like, my original goals were, well, one, why anybody listen to me? Two was like, no, I just didn't want the big names. I wanted people who were doing great stuff, but maybe never had an opportunity to be heard. I wanted to get the female voice, but then I got a few more goals as I was doing this. And one of them is what you just mentioned, bringing exposure systems that are kind of not known or on the way, unfortunately, kind of fading out, and all that. So that was not original goal, but kind of came into after, doing these for a while. So yeah, but not to worry, Dr. Tim. Modern Arnis is not going anywhere. He's like, he's all worried.
Yeah. But and that's you see that a lot, because one big thing that I've been right from literally the first time I started martial arts back in my teens, the martial history, all the ins and outs, the stuff, about the martial art, has always intrigued me. So I'm always reading, always getting basically whatever I can get my hands on, and regardless of the system. And now, obviously, with social media, the internet, the amount of material is just overwhelming. And then you start seeing stuff, and it's like, wow, I didn't realize this system even existed. And you find out there's only a small amount of people actually training it. My trips to the Philippines, I've been to the Philippines five times now, and I had an opportunity to go in all over, basically Luzon, all the different some of the small southern islands, Cebu, basically Hinagan. And then you see all these people that teach all these little different styles. It's like, wow, this is actually really cool. And it's too bad that a lot of it is disappearing. And some of it does stay alive because they may have taught somebody else that may have added it into their system. And at least if that person gives that proper credit, at least you have that one aspect of that art that may not, the core of it might not be around, but some of it, that piece of it is still alive, which is kind of nice.
I just think about how many possibly have like just faded out that we're not even remotely aware of. Like, just no idea. Like they were like maybe, they were family systems, didn't have a syllabus, weren't systematized, but a collection of techniques. I just think there's probably just so many of those that just family died and nobody took it on, nobody carried it on, and they're just kind of lost, but wow. Well, this has been wonderful, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Exactly. It's glad we can finally basically hook up. I'm looking forward we can get together face to face.
That should be pretty, because we're supposed to do some stuff with Datu. I got to talk to him soon. Hopefully some big plans, bringing shows to the forefront. Literally cross-training events and FMA specific and all that. So I think some good things are going to happen down the line. I really do.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think so. And he's the right guy, man. Give him the ball, let him just get behind him.
He's good at that for sure. And he's got the passion for it too, and that's what's wonderful. It's like he's there to help everybody. Which is cool.
It's just amazing. He really, I tell you, I can't think of another person right now that not just from a perspective of promoting FMA, but really bringing folks, giving them opportunities.
Yep.
He does that. I don't see anybody else really doing that. So I just think we need more like him. And I'm gonna follow his footsteps. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna give him full credit and piggyback off and just try to make things happen. If he's, awesome. We need more people to do it,
Yep.
So. But hey, if I don't talk to you, have a great camp with him. And it was a pleasure having you on. Appreciate it.
Thanks. I appreciate the opportunity. It's been great being here.
Yeah. I tell you, if, again, not doing the show, I never realized about these Canadian gems, All right.
Well, there's quite a few of us, it's surprising. And until I started really traveling around, the sheer amount of talent, around here is phenomenal. And you head down south, just between Montreal, Philip and all the way out to BC with Loki Jones.
You got the whole KI crew.
People down in Toronto, phenomenal amount of.
I think you guys got a huge hub there. But then you go far out, you got the KI, you got Louis Lindo, Master Tom D, KC. Yep. That trio right there, all the way out there, man, that's like freaking killer. That's like a KI hub there. And then, of course, Toronto.
Toronto is now, when I first started, like I say, go back 17 years ago, there wasn't as much, but now it's quite a mecca.
The majority of, I think, my Canadian interviews have been from that area.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, so it's a mecca there you guys got, But, all right, man.
Okay. Appreciate it. All right, you take care. All right. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye now.
All right. All right. Good guy, man. Yeah. Definitely somebody I could see you would want to hang out, train with, and all that. Who is next? That's a great question, and I don't have the answer. I know it's going to be somebody, and it'll be somebody next week, but you guys will see the flyer. But I honestly, I could give you an idea. And let me see. Probably I'm thinking a guy from Australia, Dean Lawler. It's going to be one person I got to get on next week. And could be another theme episode coming up. And who else? Yeah. Couple themes and all that. And I think Dean Lawler next week out of Australia. Yeah, I should know this. But at any rate, yeah. So, but good stuff as always. There'll be always good people coming on. So you don't have to worry about that. I'm just checking another list just to make sure I'm not forgetting. Dan Lohman, at some point, he's supposed to get back to me. Jeff Finder, Cabales. So those are some of the folks kind of the rest of the month. Jeff Finder, Dean Lawler, Par 3 FMA Books. Janelle, female California, female practitioner, getting her on. Yeah, so some good stuff coming up before the month ends. All right, folks. Thank you, and we'll see you next time, sometime this week. All right.